All right, for the record, I don't think we recorded the first three matters, but I'll just indicate my name is John Kerwin. I'm the vice chairman. I called the meeting to order at 7:30. We had a pledge of allegiance and a roll call with all members present. The only member that isn't present is Mary Presti, an alternate. Is that correct, Ms. Pennell?
That's what I have.
All right. Having all the members present, we don't need to seat any alternates. So moving on to the next matter, which is election of officers, line 5. I just have a couple of prefatory remarks. Under section 2.4A of the town charter, it does approve the position of a vice chair. There are no provisions in the town charter or the regulations as to when you have an election to fill the seating of somebody who has stepped down, a commission member who holds a commission office. The only indication in the town charter indicating votes for elected board members indicates that section 2.4 of Article 2 of the charter, that within 30 days after the elected board takes office, the board is required to elect a chairman and a secretary. In addition, the provision allows for the election of a vice chairman. It is on the agenda. I will indicate also that under Article 2, Section 2.6 of the town charter, board procedures, it indicates that the Robert Rules of Orders revised governs the conduct of all meetings of town boards. Article 1 of the charter applies board to any commission established by town charter. Accordingly, the Robert Rules of Order revised applies to the conduct of this particular board meeting. That being said, I wanted to just go over basically the Robert Rules of Order as they apply to nominations and elections. Under Article 11 of the rules, and I'll summarize it so I don't have to bore you with reading 3 pages. Most organizations have open nominations from the floor as opposed to by committee or ballot, especially for something like this. The rules also allow for chair nominations, and then obviously any of the bylaws of the committee would trump. As I indicated before, none of the charter or of the planning and zoning regulations apply to the conduct of elections, so we're left with the Robert Rules of Order. So with open nominations, which is the general nomination procedure that we rely on and have relied on in the past, let me just go over I'll generalize what the rules are with regard to nominations. They are not motions. They don't require seconds. A nomination does not require a vice chair or a chair to recognize it. The formal process is somebody can nominate an individual. A person can nominate himself or herself unless prohibited by the bylaws. And again, we don't have any bylaws regarding nomination. So it is not a motion. We don't need a motion to open it, or customarily, do you need a motion to close it? Once all the nominations are completed, we then move to the election. Election can either be by ballot or just by voice. The Robert's Rules of Orders would require, if we do voice, which has been the way we've done it in the past, basically you're allowed to vote for each position for the one nominee. So you can't just say yes or no to an individual. You have to elect a specific individual through your vote. And the only position right now that requires us to be filled, again, is the chairmanship. There is currently somebody seated as a vice chair, and there is currently someone seated as the secretary. So the rules don't require that we have to do it in group, it can just fill that one vacancy. So with that being said, do we have any nominations for the chairmanship, which is the one vacancy at this time?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yeah,
I'd like to be recognized.
Yeah, you don't have to be recognized actually for nominations, but I appreciate it.
This is Brett Olbreeze. I would like to nominate Dave Souter to be chairman.
All right. Any other nominations?
Yeah, Pizza Breast, I'd like to nominate John Kerwin for chair.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, are there any other nominations for the position of chairman? 3 times, are there any nominations for the position of chairman? All right, with that being said, the vice chair, I'm closing the nominations for that position, and we can move to the election. I think protocol does allow for the nominees to make a brief statement in support of their nomination. They also have the right to accept or deny it. Mr. Sauter, do you accept your nomination?
I do accept the nomination.
Okay, I accept my nomination as well. I'll yield to you, Mr. Sauter, as to anything you'd like to say.
Just in terms of a short statement, I think we have a fantastic board, a very bipartisan board, and it's something that's a trend that I would like to continue. I'm a big believer in open say and collective decision makings. I don't believe the chairman's role is there necessarily to dictate the path in every decision. I think it's great that we come together and we talk about the different things that we want to do, because everybody on this commission literally brings a skill set to the table that's needed. So I'm looking forward to working with all of those. I have the experience working with large groups, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to run the commission. Or the commission.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sauter. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. I'd just like to say that, whereas we are a collective board, we do make decisions collectively. I think the chairman is an important function in dictating the direction of planning and zoning, not just operating the meetings, but also to be able to promote economic development for the benefit of the entire town and maintain the property values and the peace and safety of the community. There are no qualifications listed in any of our bylaws for the chairmanship, but I think at the very least, it requires a considerable amount of skill in dealing with legal matters, in working with lawyers, both our land use attorney as well as the local bar and the town council. In that regard, I've been a lawyer in this community. I'm pro forma member of the Valley Bar. I know Attorney Condon very well. I've practiced the same forum with him for 25 years. I also am well versed in legal issues and in not just researching, but also anticipating the potential legal issues that could arise. And I think it's important that we move this board in a direction where we're less of just a rubber stamp and where we take an active role in promoting the interests of the town. Just a couple of examples of some areas where we've fallen in the past and something that can be directly affected by the chairmanship. If you look at some of our appeals that we've lost, like Timberlake, one of the issues that came up, we had a traffic safety expert that was hired by the applicant. However, we never bothered to get our own experts. We hired an expert basically to check their expert's math as opposed to going forward and getting our own information with regard to a traffic safety study. That could have helped us. Coachella, which is an appeal that we also lost recently, rather than hire an expert to review the application to determine if all that removal of fill was actually necessary to provide the development that they proposed, we basically relied on their experts to try to turn down the application, which no one was in favor of. These are the kind of things that I think you need a specific legal mind or a legal expertise. The chairmanship, Mr. Sauter has said that we haven't been a partisan board, and that's true. But I sense that we're kind of moving in that direction. I think the chairmanship should go to a person with a lot of experience. Mr. Sauter doesn't really have that experience. And so I would just ask that we consider the experience of the two nominees when we make this very weighty decision that's going to affect the direction for the remainder of the term. And there's a lot of issues that will be coming up that are going to need quite a bit of legal analysis. We're going to need to cooperate with legal counsel, and I think I'm the best person to do that. So that being said, we can move to a vote. Might as well just do the roll call again. And again, just so we know the procedure, both nominees are entitled to vote. We're not disenfranchised, so you can vote for whoever you like, Mr. Sauter. You're not prohibited, nor am I. But you have to, each individual has to say who they're voting for the chairmanship. Jessica, do you want to just go through the roll?
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to start with Josh like we do at the normal meetings. Josh is an
Actually,
alternate.
Josh is an alternate, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so
Right. I was just going to
doesn't
say,
have to
I don't
vote.
believe I have that one.
No. Sorry, Josh.
Not a word.
So let's see. Then we're going to go Dave, right?
Actually, I think it'd be appropriate if John and I both voted at the end and let the board.
Okay. Okay, skip that one too. How about we go Pete?
John Kerwin,
Okay. Pete.
and for the reasons he stated,
All
the
right.
experience he has.
Pat.
Dave Souter.
Okay. Dan Wall.
David Souter.
All right. Brett.
Dave Souter.
Jesse.
Dave Sauter.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have Dave and John left. Dave.
Yeah.
For the record, I would vote for myself.
Okay, and likewise, I would vote for myself, which means Dave is the new chairman. I'm still presiding over the election, and we can conclude it, and then I will yield the meeting to the new chair. So it's my vote, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 to 2.
Yes.
So the majority carries. It is a majority vote. So congratulations, Mr. Sauter.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I appreciate everything you've done, and I'm looking forward to working with you because I think you bring some tremendous strengths to the table, as you noted, and I think it's going to be a great relationship. Okay. On that note, we have a number of things that we need to move forward with today, and a number of public meetings and some other issues to kind of talk through. So we're going to move this meeting along. One side note, I'd like to welcome Jesse to the board as well too. This is his first meeting, and having replaced Jeff. So welcome aboard, Jess.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So first order of business is public hearings. We have continued public hearings for the New Haven Rowing Club, Z20-019, 403, 407, 411 Roosevelt Drive for the New Haven Rowing Club. The applicant Stuart Lathers Associates LLC, special exception, Article 5, Section 5.3.1, non-commercial recreational use. We've had a few conversations about this recently, and I know there's a few people on the call have logged into this meeting for this public hearing. What we did at the last meeting, and we're going to do with this for this meeting as well too, is to actually table this to a point in time where we can have a public setting where the public can actually be in person to present and discuss and talk about their thoughts regarding this in a true public hearing standpoint. The state of Connecticut has allotted extra time for public hearings like this to be able to allow that to happen. and we are still within our that time frame to be able to do it. So the hope is that for the petition that we received and the number of people that are commenting on this, we'd like to give you the opportunity to talk to us in person rather than through this virtual meeting type of setup, which can be a little bit challenging and could possibly limit some of the things that you might want to bring to the table. So at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to table this to our next planning and zoning meeting, and then we will decide from there in terms of being able to discuss this in public and seeing how things are moving forward with the pandemic.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I did have an email correspondence with the applicants, and they were in favor of having June 16th as the next date. Would that
Do we
be
have a regular-
possible?
Do we have a regularly scheduled meeting on June 16th?
Yes, it's the second meeting in June.
Without having the calendar in front of me. That would be if someone would like to make a motion to table this until the June 16th meeting, and that would preclude us having to have it as an agenda the next time, and also be as a courtesy to all of those who do want to comment. We could definitely shoot for that date.
Pat Cocherella, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, voting is unanimous. We'll table this until June 16th. Again, for those folks that joined in on the call, that's going to be the extent of our conversations regarding this tonight, and the next date to circle on your calendars to watch is going to be June 16th. So I didn't want to keep all of you that you might be on for this, keep you tied up on this call for the duration of the meeting. All right. Next up, we have new public hearings. We have a few that we need to be able to talk through. First being Z20-031, 10 Fox Hollow Road, also known as Lot 5, Fox Hollow Road, owner York Machinery South, 160 Warren Ave, Westport, Maine. Applicants Chadwick Barros Incorporated, 10 Fox Hollow Road. Special exception, there had been a public hearing waiver request, change of use. So a little bit of housekeeping just to kind of get this going. I need to outline the intent of the public hearing and the procedures. To have the applicant and his or her authorized representatives present to the commission and to the public, all information that is either necessary or pertinent to the application. The intent of the public hearing is to hear questions from the commission members and or staff relevant to the application or the applicant's response. The intent is to hear questions and or input from the public relevant to the aspects of this application only, including comments in favor of or opposed to the application, general comments or questions, which are fielded by the chairman to the applicant for response if appropriate. Those people wishing to speak are requested to sign in with the commission. On the sign-in sheet for the secretary, we don't necessarily have a sign-in sheet here, but we'll be able to, Jess, are you able to see a hand raise, or people can just jump in?
I can't see everybody, especially the people who are just calling in if they're not video, if they're not doing video. So I would just ask that everybody state their name and address for the record, and give me a chance to make sure I can get it down.
Okay, we'll do that. Continuing that thought, those who wish to speak may do so upon recognition of the chairman and upon stating their name, address, and interest in the application. All speakers will be allowed a reasonable opportunity to be heard. Speakers may not speak again until all others have had the opportunity to speak. The chairman calls for any conflicts of interest from the commission members. Chairman asks the applicant if they have reason to believe that any of the commission members have any conflicts of interest. Correspondence will be read by the secretary. The applicant submits a public hearing notification, certified return receipt, requested notice of the hearing to people who own or occupy property within a 250 feet radius of the land that is subject of the hearing, explaining who you are, what is said, what the said application is requesting, where the location of this proposal is, when, where, and why the public hearing is scheduled. The applicant submits the green return receipt cards, a copy of the notification letter, and a list of the property owners and who occupies all property within 250 feet radius needed to be submitted to the commission at the time of the initiated public hearing. The applicant will provide proof, picture with the date, that a notice of hearing signs are posted on the subject property 10 days prior to the date of the public hearing. The statement notice of hearing, the sign will include statement notice of hearing, Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission, date of hearing, time of hearing, place of hearing, and the statement. For more information, please contact or visit Oxford Town Hall. Applicant and/or applicant's representatives are going to make their presentation. The commission and their staff members will ask questions. Public participation and general comments or questions. The public may also speak in opposition and/or the public may speak in favor. Additional comments by the commission members and recent staff, at which time we will recess or close the public hearing. Pat, do you want to read the legal notice for the application?
Yes, I will. Town of Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing notice. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, Connecticut will hold a public hearing remotely during its regular meeting on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Members of the public that would like to join us online can access the meeting using the following information. Option 1, join with Google Meet, and it has the address, of course, and the meeting ID. Option 2 is joined by phone. It gives a phone number and a PIN number. The hearing will be on the following application: Z-20-031, 10 Fox Hollow Road, aka Lot 5, Fox Hollow Road. Owner York Machinery South Incorporated, 160 Warren Avenue, Westbrook, Maine. Applicant Chadwick Burrows, 10 Fox Hollow Roads. At the meeting, interested persons may be heard, and written correspondence can be submitted prior to the meeting by email. Please send your submission to pnz@oxford-ct.gov. A copy of the proposal can be accessed by visiting the town website, oxford-ct.gov. Dated at Oxford, Connecticut, this 30th day of April, 2020. That's it.
Okay. I'm going to do a roll call for conflicts of interest. And I'm going to start with the commission members. Brett, do you have any conflicts of interest?
No.
Pat, do you have any conflicts of interest?
No, I do not.
Dan Wall?
No.
Jesse?
No, I do not.
John?
No.
Pete?
No.
And I do not as well. To the applicants or the applicants' representatives, do you have any reason to believe that any of the commission members have any conflicts of interest? To the applicant or the applicant's representatives regarding this public hearing for 10 Fox Hollow Road, do any of you believe do you have any reason to believe that any of the commission members have any conflicts of interest?
Have they actually logged in, Mr. Sauter?
I'm not sure.
C1 is here from Civil One.
Yeah, I thought I saw Siwan here.
Hear me?
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Oh, sorry. I was wrong in the setting. No, I do not.
No, you're not. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Pat, was there any correspondence submitted for the said application?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have an authorization for Civil One to represent. And I have the letter from Civil One to the commission. This is C1's letter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have the statement of use and the other relevant documentation.
that basically cover everything, Pat? We'll give Pat a moment while he's double checking the paperwork.
I
So you
think
want to
he-
bear with us for a moment.
Yeah, of course.
He's also on mute, by the way, just in case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to read through
I
all
was
these?
gonna say, go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
Oh, do you want me to read through all these documents?
I don't know if we have to read through all the documents. I didn't know if there was anything new in addition to our packets. Unless Jess, do you see a reason why we have to read through every single one of these documents, or can we move into C1's presentation?
I would say that since they were all posted online on the website, you don't need to read them all, but just that you noted them is good.
Okay, very good. Okay, C1, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, C1 Sal. I'm a project manager from Civil 1, 43 Sherman Hill Road in Woodbury, Connecticut. Jessica, I also sent you the proof of our legal notice a couple weeks ago about the public hearing sign.
Yes.
And I'm here representing Chadwick Braros regarding the change of use application for Lot 5 Fox Hollow Industrial Park, which is also known as 10 Fox Hollow Road, which is the address. Our client Chadwick has recently acquired this property, and we are applying for a change of use for this property. The site has a special exception permit as a contract yard that has been approved by the commission in 2008. And due to the nature of our client Chadwick's operation, the new operation is more properly classified as heavy equipment sale and storage and rental, which is a different category under the special permit. We're not seeking any change to the site plan, so this is just a pretty simple change of use application to the site. The client is planning to do some additional improvement to the site, though, including not limit to restriping the parking lot, remilling the storage area, and replace the existing diesel tank with a smaller above-ground tank. The operation is much less intensive than a contract yard. They have about 5 full-time employees and 1 part-time employees, and their hours operation is 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. And please feel free to ask any questions you may have.
I'll open it up to the commission. If anybody has any specific questions they have of C1.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Cocherella here.
Hi, Pat.
This question is, you mentioned that this is an entirely different than the previous use. Is the applicant willing to abandon the contractor's yard use on this property?
Correct. The applicant is ready to abandon the contractor yard use.
Okay. We can get that in writing then.
Yes, I can provide something in writing.
Thank you.
Pizza Brass, I have a question, Dave.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, on this heavy equipment, what kind of heavy equipment are you going to be moving there, and how much?
So we submitted a statement of use from the client, and they stated the yard will house about 30 pieces of equipment, including but not strictly limited to excavators, skid steers, wheel loaders, as well as rock crushers and screens.
Okay, and they'll be renting them also?
Correct. There will be sales, rental, and maintenance on site.
Okay, would they have any objections to put some kind of a road protection bond down for a period of time? Due to the heavy equipment moving in and out of there?
Well, again, the heavy equipment transportation will be similar like the contract yard. It will be equivalent or even not less intensive than a contract yard.
Is that a no?
Well, it depends on what kind of bound we are asking.
Well, you're talking about heavy equipment moving in and out of there in a contractor's yard you were talking before. So I'm just saying, how much machinery are going to be moving in and out of there, and how much does it weigh, and what kind of tolls are going to take on the roads up there? I don't want to say okay for a selling equipment, heavy equipment like this, and then 4 or 5 years down the road, the Oxford got to go put a road in there. I mean, it happened
Understand.
up around the airport.
Sure, we will definitely consider a bound.
All right, thank you.
Dave, I guess, Peter, you done?
Yes, I am. Thanks, John.
All right, John Kerwin. Just in following up with that, so Shawan, you would agree to a bond as indicated by Mr. Zabras?
Yes, we agree.
I guess the procedure would be that would have to go to either the town engineer or the town attorney to come up with a suitable amount. But to get back on what the secretary had indicated, as a condition of the approval, your client would agree that the special use for the contractor's yard will be abandoned and terminated.
That is correct.
With respect to the rentals on the property, I noticed that you indicate you're going to be renting rock crushers and soil screening. As a condition of approval, would you agree that you will not engage in any of the activity on site?
Yeah, definitely. The client is not intending to do any rock crushing equipment operations on site.
Okay, and the hours of operation, does that apply? Are there weekend hours at all, or?
No, based on the Salem views is from Monday through Friday.
Okay. And return of the rental equipment, that's going to be at a specified time?
Will be a part of the hour operation between 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay, and I know that across the way there, they have there's a brewery that sometimes gets crowded. I don't know how that's going to impact their operation if they're bringing in large vehicles and there's an overflow from the brewery next door. Is there sufficient frontage in an area with the driveway to allow for that?
Well, again, it's a very similar operation than the current contract yard. So I'm not expecting any conflict with them. It'll be a similar operation or less intensive than a contract yard.
All right, I don't have anything else.
Any other questions from folks on the board?
I'm done, Dave. Thank you.
Chairman
Does
Sauter.
anybody in the public? I'm sorry, what was that? Go ahead, Jess.
If I just have one question, if that's okay.
Sure. State your name, address, etc.
Jessica Pnell.
Thank you.
When you say road bond, I'm a little confused, especially if we'll be sending this to the town engineer. Usually we do a performance bond for somebody who's built a road. So I'm not sure what kind of bond goes on a road that's already a town road.
I think I might be able to answer that. with our planning and zoning engineer. We did that up at Oxford Greens.
Okay.
They did a before and after video, and then they had to post a bond to make any repairs that were necessary if the after video showed substantial damage to the road other than normal wear and tear. So we might
It's a road.
with Jim Galligan for that information.
Okay. Okay.
Dave, this is John Kerwin. Jessica.
Hi, John.
I think it's called it's a road damage bond, or just so we get the information straight when it goes to Mr. Galligan.
Okay, I'll make that note. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a couple questions.
Go ahead, Brett.
Do we know, it says in their letter, facility will house approximately 30 pieces of equipment, including but not strictly limited to, what is set forth in the letter. What other types of equipment that's not listed could potentially be housed?
Well, there are various kind of construction equipments, and we can definitely provide some more details on that.
And then as far as renting the equipment, I mean, is it a daily occurrence? Is it a weekly occurrence? I mean, how many pieces of equipment would come and go? Are we talking about trucks every day, or?
It's construction based. If there's big construction coming into the town, client will be working with the contractor or working with a municipality to rent out the equipment, and it's definitely less intensive than a contract yard because it's not bringing back equipment every day for service and maintenance. It's usually parked in the contractor's contract yard or on the construction site.
Okay, thank you.
Pat Cocherella here. I actually went out and looked at this site, I think 3 days ago, and the primary equipment that I saw there were medium-sized excavators.
Anybody else on the commission have some questions? And I want to make sure if there's any members of the audience that would like to comment on, regarding this, is there anybody who would like to say anything? All right. Hearing none. Again, commission set with questions on this particular matter? Hearing none. If there's no other questions or comments at this time, should we take a motion to close the public hearing?
All right, Pat Cocherella, I move to close the public hearing on Z-20-031.
Dan Wall, seconds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vote is unanimous. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, Siwan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
Just a point of order or a question with regard to that. How do we propose working out the bond if the public hearing is closed?
I believe that staff can handle that, Mr. Kerwin.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I think that's probably the direction we would have to go. I mean,
would that have an impact on the approval if Mr. Galligan comes back with a bond that the applicant was not willing to post?
if the bond is one of the conditions of approval, if he doesn't accept those, then the approval is void.
I mean, we did close the public hearing based upon, those things that we were going to move forward with, so.
All right, just to make the record.
Okay, thank you. Jess, regarding the intent that I read through for the first one, is that required to be read for each public hearing, or do we move then into the next public hearing notice?
In the past, we haven't read them every time. I don't think it's particularly necessary to put us all through that again.
Okay. Okay, that being said,
Usually all I do, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Come on, don't you
all I do is
hear your name voice?
go ahead, let Pat go first, Brett. Pat?
Mr. Chairman, usually all that we do is I read the public notice for each public hearing. You don't have to go through the explanation each time on the same night.
Okay, then why don't we move into the next topic on the agenda, which is Z20034 312 Chestnut Tree Hill Road. Pat, can you go move into the public notice?
The Town of Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission Public Hearing Notice. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, Connecticut will hold a public hearing remotely during its regular meeting on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Members of the public that would like to join us online can access the meeting using the following information, and it lists the Google Meet site and the telephone numbers. The hearing will be on the following application: Z-20-034 312 Tree Hill Road. Owner, estate of Sir J. Mahaly Sr. The applicant is Methay Mahaly, Booth Hill Road, Trumbull, Connecticut. Re-subdivision of lot number 2. At the meeting, interested persons may be heard, and written communications can be submitted prior to the meeting by email. Please send your submission to pnz@oxford-ct.gov. A copy of the proposal can be accessed by visiting the town website, oxford-ct.gov, dated at Oxford, Connecticut, this 30th day of April, 2020.
And again, we will have to go through and call off to make sure there's no conflicts of interest. So we will go down the line regarding that. Brett, do you have any conflicts of interest regarding this?
None.
Dan Wall?
No.
Jesse?
No.
John?
No.
And Pete?
No.
And Pat?
Pat Cocherella, no.
And myself, I do not. For the representatives that are here regarding 312 Chestnut Tree Hill Road, do you have any, you have reason to believe that any commission members have any conflicts of interest? Are the representatives of 312 Chestnut Tree Hill Road present?
There I am unmuted now. I do not believe I have any, no conflicts of interest. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. So, Pat, is there any additional correspondence between above and beyond what we already have in our packets that we would need to get read into the application? It looks like most of this has been posted.
Yeah, everything seems to be posted, the statement of use and all of the other thing. It's Bombero and Associates Professional Land Surveyors that are requesting the waiver. The lot drawings, in all honesty, for me, these are awfully small. I can't really see the detail I need to see on these. So,
On the maps.
what appears to be an extended area of wetlands and that sort of thing on one of the lots. So I don't quite know exactly things. So maybe the applicant can fill us in.
Okay, and for the record, if the applicant could state their name and address, and then open up. Matt?
Yep, it's Matthew Mahaley, 111 Booth Hill Road, Trumbull, Connecticut. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm having a little trouble. I don't know if it's my internet. I apologize. Because Mr. Cocciarelli, you asked about the wetlands, I believe, right? So my application is in front of wetlands. It's nearly final. But I guess I'll start with, I think it's reasonably straightforward. It's an 8.2 acre parcel that I want to cut into 4 lots, leaving the existing house on one, the barn on another, and then 2 new lots that completely front Old Litchfield Turnpike. The 2 lots on Old Litchfield Turnpike will be accessed by some improvement to Old Litchfield Turnpike. With respect to the wetlands, I think we're nearly final with their approval, and part of their approval is they've requested a conservation easement. And with respect to my requests for the waiver of the open space, and that conservation easement will encompass roughly 1.5 acres, which is actually over 18% of the total parcel that being subdivided. So I'd ask you to take that into consideration with that request as well. Mr. Bombero found some regs that said the open space requirement was 10%. I don't know what the current requirement is, but if you take that into consideration, I would appreciate it. I believe everything, everything complies with the existing regulations. That there's any, there's anything that doesn't, and I apologize for my, if I'm not addressing all your questions, but this is a bit of a first for me. So.
Well, it's our opportunity to ask questions of you, so we can kind of go through there.
Yep. So, I think it's pretty straightforward, but let me know what I can answer. So.
Let's start off by opening up to the commission if they have any questions. Questions for Matt?
Yeah, I have a few.
Okay, John.
This is Vice Chairman Kerwin. This is a re-subdivision. Is that correct? Did we lose him?
I
Matt,
apologize.
you still
I didn't hear what. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Did you hear the question from John?
I think it's his internet.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
We can hear you. As long as you can hear us, I'm going to let Mr. Kerwin come back with his question again.
Yeah, it says, your application says it's a re-subdivision. I don't see any of the original subdivision paperwork. I just have the plans for what you're submitting as a re-subdivision.
Well, I believe it's a re-subdivision because the original subdivision was in 1971. The lots labeled Robert and Bobby Costigan, and the 2 lots next to them were part of the original parcel that was subdivided back in 1971. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Is that, I can't read anything. The documents are too small. I don't know if that's reflected anywhere in your paperwork or.
If the re-subdivision is reflected anywhere in the paperwork?
No, the original subdivision, what the conditions.
No,
were.
the original subdivision is not in the paperwork.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, is there a note in the upper left-hand corner that says re-subdivision on the map? Or refer to map of re-subdivision, lower left-hand corner maybe? It's the second or third pot. I know it's a re-subdivision because I spoke to the engineer.
Yeah, it's note number 1 on one of the line drawings.
It's the last picture in the packet. It does say it on the bottom right, re-subdivision.
It's a re-subdivision map boundary.
Sorry, well, I didn't hear you.
Go ahead, Brett.
That was Jesse, but it is on it's note number 1. I know in the lower left in one of them. It might be somewhere else as well.
All right, and I know that there are certain provisions that apply to re-subdivision. I don't know if there's any time frame. Does the applicant have any input on that? What approvals with the original subdivision would still be binding on the re-subdivision?
I don't know.
I think we'd need to at least see that application to see what the conditions were. Also, with respect to the request for a waiver of open space, now what's requested of from inland wetlands is basically just an easement for the wetlands that you can't develop anyway. Is that correct?
Well, but it goes into the, it goes into the regulated area, which, could do something, right? I understand it goes into the regulated area. So it's, an easement above and beyond whatever they would
basically
allow there.
restricts you from developing the wetlands, which you can't do anyway, but it's an easement to the benefit of the makes that a legal requirement in the deed. There are other purposes for the conservation or for the open space donation. Would you be amenable to pay a fee to the open space as opposed to actual providing property? Because I can say,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to dial in. Can you folks hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
All right, I'm going to do audio on the phone. I apologize.
Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me now? Hi, this is John Kerwin. Can you hear me?
Matt?
Are you muted?
Yeah.
All right, let me try it again on the computer.
There you go. We can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
All
So
right.
what was the question,
Can you hear
John?
me
I
now?
apologize.
Oh, that's okay. This is a horrible forum to try to get this done, but
It's hard.
we make the best of it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So the letter that you submitted from Bombero and Associates indicates that that there's open space adjacent to it. But under the statute, the purpose of the open space setback, either donation, is to provide and this is through General Statutes 8-25B, either open space or to provide funds that go into a fund for the town that the town administers for preserving open space or acquiring additional land for open space or for recreation or agricultural purposes. So the purpose isn't just to, that we have, a piece of open space from your subdivision. I think the intent of the statutes is that either the land or the monies go for the benefit of the town to either buy more open space in other areas as opposed to adjacent. So I don't know if we would require that as a board, would that be something that you would be willing to do? There is a statutory a fee that's spelled out to make that based on the fair market value of the land transferred. Basically, what I'm saying is,
I want to check the old record that Mr. Bombero found. He said he thought that the conservation easement would count towards the open space contribution, but and you're asking for the fee.
Yeah, in lieu of actual open space, I would be requesting as a member of the board that we not waive it. This is a problem that we've been having with the board, and I think the town, where we don't have the money to provide for open space. I think one of the ways that we do that is we enforce the statutes that are in effect. 8-25B does provide a mechanism. In lieu of actual land, it allows us to calculate a fair market value of a donation that would go into a fund. So that would be something I would be requesting. You don't know if there was a donation back in 71, and I doubt it. I mean, that's a long time ago, right?
Right. Yeah, I doubt it. So what would the amount be then? You're saying it's not a fixed amount?
It's based on the fair market value of the property. And there's a statutory procedure that's in place to fill that out. Another question with respect to
a percentage of the fair market value? What is it?
Yeah, it's based on the number of lots, and then it's in the regulations. I don't have it in front of me, but we would have to get the fair market value, and then you would take a percentage of each, and either you donate the amount of the land or the that amount based on the statutory formula. So that's something I would be requesting for the approval. I guess what I'm saying, that's one of the points I'm making. With regard to the prior subdivision, was this a subdivision among relatives, or was this a commercial subdivision?
Was it what, or a commercial subdivision?
Was it the statutes provide for re-subdivisions for land that was originally subdivided for families, if it's a subdivision between family members. However, if you don't get to keep re-subdividing land if it was a commercial basis. So I think I've asked the question to you, but I think we're going to need that information from our records to determine, the nature of that original subdivision.
Right. I'm not completely sure if it was to a family member or to the current owners.
Those are all the comments I have.
Is there anybody else in the commission who'd like to ask some questions?
Mr. Chairman, Patrick Cotrell here.
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I just think that given the number of questions, et cetera, we need to keep this public hearing open and until we can get answers to all of this.
I would agree. Want to give the public an opportunity, if there's anybody in the public that wanted to speak at this time because they were online, anybody from the public that wanted to comment on this? Hearing none, any other questions at this time for the applicant?
No.
None at this time.
And hearing none, I think it does make sense till we get into some of these other questions that we do table this to our, Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, our June 2nd meeting. And if that's okay, I just need a motion.
Yeah, before, if I can just request, and this is John Kerwin,
Sure, John.
discussion on the motion. Jess, can you get the original application or look through and see either on the Mylar or whatever, what the conditions were on the original subdivision?
Yes, I'll take out the information on the original subdivision.
All right, thanks. And Dave, did you make a motion to table?
And I did not make a motion. I was asking if anybody wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, I would make that motion.
We have a second.
I'll get Matt Cocherella, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll table this till our next meeting. Matt, thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, our third public hearing for the night is D-20-035A 248 Oxford Road, owner TJ Realty, the Boar's Nest Ox Axe Company. Pat, would you be able to read in that public hearing notice?
Sure. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, Connecticut will hold a public hearing remotely during the regular meeting on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Members of the public that would like to join us online can access the meeting using the following information and join with Google Meet and the meeting ID and join by phone and the phone numbers and PIN number. The hearing will be on the following application: Z-20-035A, 248 Oxford Road, owner T&J Realty, 3333 Main Street, Stratford, Connecticut. Applicant, the Boar's Nest / Ox Axe Company LLC. Special exception, Article 7, Section 7.3.16, sale of alcoholic beverages. At the meeting, interested persons may be heard and written correspondence can be submitted prior to the meeting by email. Please send your submission to pnz@oxford-ct.gov. A copy of the proposal can be accessed by visiting the town website, oxford-ct.gov. Dated in Oxford, Connecticut, this 30th day of April, 2020.
Thank you, Pat. Again, public hearing, want to make sure we identify if there's any potential conflicts of interest. Let me go around. Brett, any conflicts?
Sorry, was on mute. No conflicts.
Thank you. Dan Wall?
No.
Betsy?
No.
Thank you. Pat?
Pat Cocherella, no conflict.
John?
John, no conflict.
Pete?
Pete, no conflict.
And myself, no conflicts. For the representatives or the applicant that are here regarding 248 Oxford Road, do you have any reason to believe that any of the commission members have any conflicts of interest?
Attorney Karen Fisher for the Boar's Nest, and no conflict.
Thank you. Pat, is there any additional correspondence that has not been posted that we need to read into the set application?
Everything that I have here has been posted.
Okay, very good. Okay, I will turn it over to you, attorney, and Karen, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Karen Fisher Law Firm, 7 Wakely Street in Seymour, Connecticut, on behalf of Ox Axe Company LLC, who's doing business as the Boar's Nest for this application. This location is at 248 Oxford Road. It is located right next door to the Oxford Axe Throwing. Our application is for a special exception for the sale and consumption of alcohol. Our statement of use kind of sets forth what they're planning to do with the property. They're not planning for it to be a public bar. This is going to be a members only bar and only open to those people who are members of the Oxford Axe Throwing. They are going to have an interior bar space and an outdoor patio space. And we've identified that on one of the attachments with kind of a hand sketch drawing to show the two locations, and the size of that. The inside bar is 25 by 50 and the patio is 40 by 50. As far as employees are concerned, they are planning at minimum to have probably 2 bartenders, 2 servers, and 1 security personnel. The concept of the bar, because it will have a door, if you look at the drawing, there's an interior door that you'll see located next to the bathroom. That door actually goes into the Oxford Axe Throwing business. And that door is going to be monitored by security. It's going to be utilized by the servers in order to serve only beer and wine to the people who are patrons of the Oxford Axe Throwing. As you may recall, on that application, we had requested and were approved for people to be allowed to bring alcohol into the axe throwing. And we were monitoring and having to check coolers and do all of that to ensure that it was only going to be beer and wine. This will allow us to discontinue allowing people to bring in alcohol from outside in order to be able to more safely and securely monitor what people are actually drinking. Because they're only going to be allowed to get drinks straight from the servers. The servers would be able to tally what people are drinking, and we will know that it is only beer and wine. So people who are in the axe throwing could, when they are done, go into the bar, hang out until it's closed, and we have the hours of operation listed on the statement of use. But people cannot go back and forth. Once you've run into the bar, you're in the bar, and you cannot re-enter the axe throwing area. And we think this is going to be able to give us a lot more security in knowing what people are actually consuming once they're in the axe throwing area to ensure the safety. There's not going to be any food prepared on the premises. They're going to still utilize what happened with the axe throwing, which is to utilize Roses and other local restaurants to deliver food for patrons to consume in both locations. So there's not going to be anything served there. This is all within an existing site plan that was previously approved. I think, the characteristics go with the rest of the plaza. There are other places that serve alcohol there. There's an adequate amount of parking area. And I think that probably covers it unless you guys have questions. And I will note that I did submit to Jessica that we did post the sign in accordance with the executive order on May 2nd.
All right. We're going to open it up to the commission for any questions for Attorney Fisher.
Dave?
Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
Just a couple questions. And looking at the drawing, it looks like there are 2 doors from the outside patio to the bar area. Is there going to be, or even to the outside patio area, what's going to prevent somebody from bringing alcohol backwards through the outside to the patio area and then the patio area into the bar if somebody so chose to do that?
That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to kind of mention that and explain it. So that outdoor patio area, yes, there's 2 doors that go from the bar into the patio area. The patio area is going to be fully fenced in outside. It's going to have the AstroTurf for the turf. And there's going to be 2 gate doors, 6-foot gate doors on the patio for, for exit only in case of emergency. So people can't enter the patio. They can only get to the patio through the bar, and they can only, they have to leave the patio area through the bar, but there will be 2 emergency exits from the patio. So I think, we're not as concerned with people being either in the patio or in the bar, but we are more concerned with making sure that nobody is leaving the bar and going into the axe throwing. If that
And
answers.
then, yeah, it does. And then as far as the door going from the bar to the axe throwing business, I know you said you're going to have security there. So essentially they're not going to allow anybody to go from the bar into the axe throwing. So they're going to stop all traffic other than the servers from coming into the axe throwing business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's the only way that they can monitor it.
And then as far as bringing alcohol in from the outside to the inside, I know you said you wanted to, try to eliminate that. That's the reason for the bar, because you don't want the outside bringing it in. How do you propose stopping people from bringing in? So you're not going to have coolers anymore or anything?
No more coolers. We're going to change the member rules. If this is approved, then we're going to change the membership rules for the axe throwing that says no alcohol is to be brought, no drinks of any kind or food, to be brought into the premises. So it would alleviate it that way. They were only open for a very short period of time before this pandemic hit. But they spent a considerable amount of time monitoring this, removing people, telling people to take their coolers out because they saw things that were not beer and wine. So this is going to alleviate that problem because now they can 100% control it. They don't have to have people searching coolers and worried about who's going to sneak something in.
Okay, thank you.
Pat Coacharella here, Attorney Fisher. I'm looking at this little hand-done drawing here, and I'm not quite sure of what I'm looking at in terms of the fixtures out on the patio. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, out on the patio is going to be, so I'm not sure how you're holding the drawing, but if there are picnic benches, you could probably identify the 3 picnic benches at the top or the rectangulars with the smaller ones. Those are to be picnic tables. And then the circles with the 2 lines on the left, those are going to be individual tables that they're hand making. And then the other little rectangles with the circles, you see 8 of those. That's the cornhole game.
So then this is going to be a recreation area, not just a patio seating.
No, it's not really a recreation area. It's just like
cornhole is not recreation.
Well, I believe it's the same as the fact that the bar next door or any other bar in Oxford has dartboards in it, or a pool table, or cornhole.
Yeah. I don't know. You keep expanding this use with the axe throwing. First we were doing just the axe throwing, then we were doing the axe throwing with bringing beer and wine in. Now we're bringing axe throwing with beer, wine, and liquor sales and an outdoor recreation area. It just seems this thing is growing and growing. Instead of it all being coming in as one application, it seems like it's kind of growing a little bit at a time, kind of like to keep it under the radar.
No,
you know what I'm talking about?
I hear what you're saying, but if you look at our original application for the axe throwing, our statement of use included the fact that people were going to bring in their own alcohol. So from moment one, we have always said axe throwing with people having alcohol there. So that was always a part of it. So I don't see this as people adding on. After it was open and they saw the people that were coming and what people were requesting and the space being available next door, it made more sense to then do a separate business. I mean, they all fall under the Ox Axe LLC, but it is 2 different businesses. It's the Oxford the axe throwing, and it's the Boar's Nest, which is going to be a private members bar. Remember, this is not open to the public, so we're not going to have the general public coming in and out of this bar. They have to be members of the axe throwing.
So is this the same membership fee that you pay for the axe throwing, or is there going to be an additional fee to be a member of the bar?
No additional fee. It's part of your membership to the axe throwing is that you have access to this bar.
I see. Okay. Thank you. That kind of covers it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a few questions. This is John Kerwin.
No problem, Mr. Kerwin, go ahead.
Thanks. I have to say first, and on an unrelated matter, Attorney Fisher, that's a great look with all the Connecticut case reporters behind you.
I really killed it this time. The last time I was in my kitchen, but I had very poor internet service, so I came to the office and I figured, you know, I'd look impressive with the books.
Very, very legal. It's a great look. So that being said, can you just go over when did this application, as you mentioned, was just before us not too long ago. Can you tell us when that occurred?
That meeting was, we were there in January or February.
Okay. So it was,
I believe it was January 7th we were before the board, and you approved it on January 21st.
all right. So you were basically in, when did it go into business?
February 21st.
February 21st. So they started serving customers on February 21st.
They were open for 3 weekends and then COVID hit.
Okay. And just to go over again, to join this club, you pay a $5 fee, I think it is. You have to sign a form.
The membership fee is $10 and you have to execute the membership agreement, which I believe we submitted copies of those. And I did speak with on the phone Sergeant Borowski and with Mr. Pelletier with regards to language that they wanted in our handbook, and we included everything they had asked for.
So basically to join, you come in, you execute, which means you sign the form and you pay $10 and that entitles you to come in. Right. And that's been the process so far for the past 3 months.
Absolutely.
How many people have joined?
One. How many? 4. We believe there's approximately 400. I don't have that record in front of us.
Okay. And so you said the reason for this within 3 weeks, they've only been open for 3 weeks, but the reason why you're coming again before us now asking for a liquor permit is that you realized just in this short amount of time that there was a problem with it. People were sneaking in non-permitted alcohol.
Well, they noticed that they were doing a lot of enforcement and they saw the opportunity. The space to the right has been open. The landlord had approached them, asking them if they would be interested in it. And after, looking out for feedback and talking to different people, it was kind of a request from people to say, hey, it would be great if we had a place to go to once we were done, throwing our axes so we can continue hanging out with our friends. So they started looking into it and said, this might be the better option. And it would also add to more safety at the axe throwing.
Well, as I recall, you had said there was a problem with, people sneaking in. So the type of clientele are bringing in harder liquor than was permitted.
Some were. They did come across it, and the people were fine. A lot of people didn't realize the rule. Maybe they hadn't read everything completely. And once they were told you can't have this, they brought it out to the car and they came back in and were fine with it. So it was, I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot of the fact that it was brand new and a lot of people didn't understand the rules. And that's why they were having, some issues with it.
But it was a significant enough problem that the applicant wanted to change his business model within 3 weeks of being open. So
I apologize because my client's here and he was telling me it happened a couple of times with the hard alcohol. And the more of the concern that they were having was the consumption. There were large amounts of consumption happening. And if we're serving, you can monitor that consumption. And our intent would be to modify the membership agreement that they signed. If you recall, the prior membership agreement gave them the right to remove people who were intoxicated, who weren't following the rules, that it gave us complete carte blanche to be able to say, you can't be here anymore, you have to leave. And we're going to revise the membership agreement to say that if the servers want to cut you off because they feel that you've had enough drinks for the night, we have the right to cut them off.
Yeah, but one of the problems that you were having is people weren't reading the agreement, and that was the problem why they were bringing in the non-permitted alcohol, right? That's what you just stated.
Yes, the few people, but I did tell you we have 400 members, and it was 2, 3 people with the hard alcohol, and then the consumption. So, it's not in our membership agreement that tells you exactly how many drinks you can have a night, but this would allow them to better monitor it.
Yeah.
And it goes with the flow of what's happening in that plaza. I mean, under special exception, alcohol sale is permitted in this commercial district. There's a bar there already. It's not anything different. I mean, we've previously allowed bars in this area, but this bar is not going to be open to the public. So I think there's going to be a lot more controls on it than you have at the other bar.
Yeah. Well, in the sense that if I want to go in there, I pay $10 for the year, and then I can go in basically like I could hit the office and walk over and go into the Boar's Nest.
If you're a member of Oxford Astro, then you can come into the bar.
Yeah, which means I sign the form and I pay them $10.
You sign the release.
Yeah, the first time I go in.
Yeah, the release of liability.
Yeah. And, I'm kind of following up on what Secretary Cocherello was indicating, how this seems to be somewhat of a contrivance. How much of an effect is this going to have on the profit of the establishment now that they're going to be selling liquor?
I'm not sure I understand your question, what it would have to do with the zoning of the property.
Well, I think Secretary Cocherello brought up a good point. You were just before us 3 months ago, and didn't ask for the sale of alcohol permit. Now you come back and say that there were problems with the way that the business was working, and you want to affect more. I just think that it appears more like this is going to be a considerable bump in revenue, just from my understanding of the beverage industry. I know restaurants make most of their profit on selling alcohol. Now that this is going to be effectively turn into a bar that sells alcohol, a private bar, but sells alcohol and also allows you to toss a few axes. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if you have an answer about what the estimate is on the profit, if it's going to double or triple what they expect in their monthly revenues.
I don't know that they have projected that, and this is separate. This is the Boar's Nest. This isn't Oxford Axe Throwing. So this is 2 different businesses for them. They're running 2 separate businesses under the same LLC. They didn't want to include a sit-at bar. I mean, we've always said there was going to be alcohol. So, we've never disguised the fact that there would be alcohol at the facility, but we didn't want to have a bar set up within the walls of the axe throwing, because that could definitely be liability issues, because it'd be very hard to monitor. But once they were open and running, and people were coming to them saying, boy, I wish you had the place next door, because then we can go hang out there and have our drink with our friends and our members. And then you look at it as a business and say, hey, and the landlord comes to you and there's a space that's open that has a great patio area that you can fence in and have a place for people to hang out from the community, and feel good at, in an environment they like, with people who do the same thing as them.
Now, I know you had cited 7.3 of our regs that apply to alcohol in the commercial zone. There's also Article 17 which applies. Sale of alcohol, and specifically I'm looking at 17.2.3. Sure, everyone has a copy of it handy. They can just pull it right up there. But one of the things that the commission can consider is the number of bars in the area. So I wanted to kind of go over that. I know that there's a bar, not that I've ever been in any of these establishments, but there's a bar at Rose's. Is that correct? Rose's has a lounge.
There is a bar in Rose's, and the owner of Rose's is very supportive of Oxford axe throwing and of the Boar's Nest proposal. We've talked with the owner. He's providing a lot of the food to the people who are at the axe throwing. They do a considerable amount of business through him, the customers do, and he understands that if they're going to come to their bar afterwards and they're hungry, they're most likely, in all likelihood, going to order from Rose's because he's right there, even though they will allow anyone else who will do a takeout and delivery to bring food in. The other bar that's there is the Office, which is a very much a different clientele type of bar than what the Boar's Nest is going to be.
That's correct. So my point is under 17.2.3, the commission has the right to look at the effect on the area, the number of other bars that sell alcohol, and concern and effect which the new permit may have on such neighborhood. So within that neighborhood, you've got the Office, right? You've got Rose's, which has a lounge. Right across 60 or 188, you've got Brookside, which is less than a quarter of a mile.
Which is a restaurant with a bar like Rose's, which is a different clientele.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at 17.2.3, and it's saying that it would be detrimental to the public interest, that you have to take into consideration whether or not it's detrimental to the public interest. And I don't think that. I don't know that having a choice of locations of different types of places is detrimental to the public. I think it's good for the public to have a place to go and hang out and become a member and do some axe throwing and take on a new activity and then have a comfortable location to hang out at.
I appreciate that, and that's one take on it, but I think you would concede that possibly reasonable minds might differ, and that some people might say that to have so many bars congested in one area is not healthy, and that at a certain point, maybe Oxford doesn't need another sale of alcohol facility. And that's the determination, obviously, that would be vested upon us as a board, as I'm sure my other commissioners would agree. Which way that would go, I don't know, that we might not see it as a detriment, but it is something that we consider. I know before, and I just have a few other comments and then I'll stop. But I know before, when this had first come up, we had discussed getting some more input from the resident trooper and the other emergency staff. I don't know if that's been done yet, and if I can, through the chairman, ask the secretary, Ms. Pinnell, if we've gotten any input from them, or if any has been solicited.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kerwin, if I can just give you, it was on me that I was to contact Scott Pelletier and the resident trooper, which I did. I had several emails and a phone call with the resident trooper. He kind of reached out to all of the other emergency personnel and came back to me with what everyone was looking for. And he was more concerned that he wanted to be sure that if there was an issue with someone who was definitely impaired or intoxicated, that the requirement of the employees was that they were to call the Oxford police to have that person removed, and that they weren't to remove the people on their own. So if somebody appeared to be heavily intoxicated, he wanted the action to be that the employee was to call 911 and have police dispatched so that the police could take care of it and take that intoxicated person to the hospital or do whatever they needed to do with them. So
did you submit that email with the information?
I did submit in, which it was revised into our employee handbook, and I have submitted in the employee handbook,
Oh, so
which
that
is
was,
what required me to do.
okay, that was prior to that was the first application, right?
No, I submitted a follow-up after speaking with Sergeant Borowski. I included the language in the handbook, submitted the handbook to Sergeant Borowski, and then submitted it to the town. So you guys should have that.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
You can find that. Mhm.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Wall.
Go ahead, Mr. Wall.
Much as I really enjoy hearing back and forth between attorneys, I just figured I'd make it a comment. Seems to me that this application is more preferable. It makes more sense for a private club than BYOB. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Go ahead, Jess.
I got a few things here. You know, I'm new to the P&Z, but I'm not new to small business here in town. I just believe that the owner recognizes that there might be a small issue, and he's trying to fix that issue by creating this members-only club. Having a server give you your drinks instead of BYOB, I believe, is just for the better of the business and probably for everybody. And I also believe that maybe the entire COVID situation actually hurt this business significantly as well. Only being open for 3 weeks, you know, I just think that, you know, these owners have got a point where they're trying to make their business more, I guess I would say, successful, and they're trying to fix an issue, and that's pretty much what I've got here.
Very good. Thank you.
Pat Cocherella here, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Attorney Fisher. In your conversation with Mr. Kerwin, you made passing reference that it was no sitting at the bar. And I noticed on your drawing, it looks like little seats and tables and all sorts of people sitting at the bar there. Is that correct?
I think you picked up, I did talk about sitting in a bar, but that was in response to when he tagged off of your comment about why is this happening now, and I was explaining the fact that they didn't want, we've always said there was going to be alcohol there, but we didn't want to have within the four walls of the axe throwing facility a bar with people sitting at it, because we didn't think that would be manageable. We thought the BYOB would be more manageable, but now it appears that, you know, I think it's even better served by having a separate bar and actual servers, but not within the four walls. So making sure that, you know, people can't bring alcohol from the bar, go up to the bar and order their own drink and bring it back to the axe throwing.
So technically, and follow me with this, I could go into the axe throwing, right? Now I'm a member. I paid this previously, so I'm a member. I can go into the axe throwing, but not throw any axes. I can just walk through and go into the bar. And I can just hang out in the bar. As long as I don't go back into the axe throwing, I'm good to go.
You don't have to go through the axe throwing. You can come into if you're not going to be throwing axes and you're a member, then you can come through the door of the bar and you know, as long as you're a member, you can order a drink.
Got a question now.
We'll show their membership card.
That's good. At the bar, are the bartenders or the servers going to check for your membership ID in the club?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. That's
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Pete.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mrs. Fisher, you said you got 400 members. You signed up 400 people within a matter of 2 months?
In the matter of 3 weeks, yes, because they were booking
You signed up
reservations
400 people.
and booking parties in advance. So They had been advertising on Facebook. They have people that are signing up because you can sign up online to be a member and make a reservation, or calling in to make a reservation. So they had reservations booked, which all got canceled because of COVID.
Are you affiliated with any other axe throwing companies or axe throwing private clubs?
Am I personally?
No, the person that owns this axe throwing company, is he affiliated with anybody else, or a franchise of any kind?
No, no.
This is the only one in the state of Connecticut.
Well, no, they're not the only axe throwing facility, but the owners of this LLC, the members of Ox Axe Company LLC, not one of the members is associated with any other axe throwing facility.
Okay. All right, and the last time you were in front of us, you said that there would be definitely no selling of alcohol beverage within there. Because this is one reason I voted yes for your company, that the problem of selling alcohol there and throwing axes didn't really, now you're saying you're gonna be selling alcohol there. And what gets me is that you got so much security there, it looks like you know there's gonna be a problem there.
No, it's just being more cautious. I mean, I think, you want to make sure that you're not going to have a problem and that people are going to be safe in the environment. So you become overly cautious and you make sure you have adequate personnel to make sure that everyone has an enjoyable night. Now, yes, we said we weren't going to sell because we weren't going to sell. Like I said to Mr. Kerwin and kind of followed up with Mr. Coach before, the concern would be if you had a physical bar there, you can't monitor who's walking up to that bar and throwing an axe or doing this, which is why we didn't want to have a bar where it was selling within 4 walls of Oxford axe throwing. By having the separate facility, and the only people who can serve are those servers, the waiter or waitress.
I understand what you're saying, but there's also other bars in that area, like Commissioner Kern was saying. There's 4 other bars there. What's going to stop somebody from going across the street, having a few beers? And I see people walk into these places. They don't go to eat there. They go to drink. I was at Rosie quite a few times. I see people drinking. They're not eating. What stops them from going into your axe throwing if they're a member? They have a few too many, then they go that.
Well, because if you recall, under our membership agreement, we have the right to refuse someone to be allowed to throw axes if they show signs of intoxication or we think that they're a concern to the health or safety of any of the members in the club. So if somebody walks in reeking of alcohol and staggering, we're not putting an axe in their hand. We're telling them, we're sorry, you can't throw axes tonight.
I know alcoholics that call their liquor pretty good. That they can fool anybody. They can fool a police officer. My concern is the public. My concern is the police officers in that place if something goes on. This is my concern. With alcohol, it's just like, you got a gun and a bullet. No, neither one's any good until you put them together.
I understand that, but I could be walking across the parking lot of Market 32 to get my groceries and some drunk could be mad and shoot me. So, I mean, things can happen in any situation. This is, the 3 members that own this business have, they have families, they are local people, they're concerned about the safety of the people that are going in there. So if you recall, one of the members was there and spoke and had indicated that there is one of the owners of the axe throwing is present on site every night that they're open. They have at least one of them present to monitor and make sure everything's handled appropriately.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to make sure we give the public a chance to weigh in as well too. I'm not sure if anybody in the audience has any comments they'd like to make regarding this.
Mr. Chairman, I just have 2 more questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
Ms. Fisher, did you say that no food was going to be served in there?
No, they're not preparing and selling food. The food that will be consumed, I'm sorry if I was confusing. The food that will be consumed in the facility will either come from Roses or another restaurant. But they're not going to have a kitchen and they're not going to be cooking or selling food.
Okay, the only reason I ask is because, with the consumption of alcohol, food goes, quite a bit to absorbing that alcohol. So having food in some ways does, is a benefit.
So I can tell you that, as far as the axe throwing, they were only open 3 weekends, so I can't give you a lot of history, but they were spending about $1,000 a night at Rose's for orders that people were placing and eating while at the axe throwing. We plan to have the menus for Rose's and other places at the bar with the servers promoting, would you like something to eat? We can order from Rose's. Here's the menus we offer where we can get food from you, from local people to help support the community.
And then one last question, as far as the server bringing alcohol from the bar into the axe throwing. So you're putting the onus on that server, whomever that server is, to make the determination that this person has or hasn't had enough alcohol. What is enough alcohol? How much I consume versus how much somebody else consumes could be quite a bit different. So,
well, that's the onus that's put on every bar owner, that's put on every bartender. So it's a judgment call. So you have to, when I spoke to Sergeant Borowski, in this conversation about what exactly is highly intoxicated and how do you define that, and he said, you have to use your best judgment. You have to look for slurring words. You have to look at this, and you have to be aware of that. And we had that conversation. There's not an exact definition of X amount of drinks, but every Rose's has to deal with it. The office, Brookside, any bar has to try and monitor that the best they can.
Would there be some type of training that this person or persons would go through just to look for those types of indicators? Only because if it's going to be some 18-year-old who's serving the alcohol, I don't know how old these servers are.
You have to be 21 to serve, and honestly, they're not going to just throw a 21-year-old in there monitoring this.
Okay. Those are my only concerns. But I think, from just my 2 cents, I think, as Jesse said and others have said, I think it sort of makes sense from a control perspective. But I do have some concerns that I just raised.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think at this point, if we should consider recessing this public hearing, because there seems to be a number of questions that still need to be answered. If we recess rather than closing, I think it would be best served for everybody involved.
I would agree. I wanted to make sure we had our initial rounds of questions that were asked. And I think we have some takeaways and some more discussion. So, at this time, I would accept the motion to recess or table this until our next meeting in the beginning of June.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Is there specific questions that you're looking to have answers to? Because I feel as though I've answered some questions, but I want to make sure that we're prepared for the next meeting to give you the information that you and the commission would be looking for from us. So I just want to make sure that we're clear and we're giving you what you're looking for at the next meeting.
I think there was a lot of views around some different contexts. One of the questions, one of the things that was open-ended was in regards to the conversations you had with the sergeant and his communications, because I don't think we've seen this, and just correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen any communications or anything like that come across our table. So I would like to review and see with that revised handbook that was submitted. I'd like to see the actual communications from the sergeant, and I think it just behooves us to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. There's a lot of things there, and if there is additional questions, we can bring them up at the next meeting.
Okay, I can make sure to have that at the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Cotarella here. The other issue that we actually didn't even talk about, but the positioning of the outdoor patio, exactly where is that relative to the building, and does it remove any parking spaces?
It's not impacting any parking spaces. If you go to the building and look, this is the end unit on the right, and there's a large grass area that exists there right now. This patio is going to be on the grass area.
Okay, just, make sure that's clear on a little sketch or something, because it doesn't really show it on this. This shows it almost like it's 2 rooms in an interior of a building. the sketch I'm looking at.
I
And
can do that, and we can also submit a picture because you'll see it. There's a grass area, so it'll be within that grass area.
that would be fine, just to keep everything, clear and precise. So 10 years from now, somebody pulls the file, they understand what's in there.
Understood.
Thank you, Attorney Fisher.
If hearing nothing else, is there a motion to recess this until our next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is tabled. Attorney Fisher, thank you very much for all your time tonight, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay, we have a future public hearing scheduled for June 2nd, Z20-033, Lot 1R, Pheasant Run Road for 589 Investments, Oxford, Connecticut. Jess, is there anything we have to do any more with this right now, or just note that it's set up for June 2nd?
Just that we note that it's set up for June 2nd.
Okay, so is there a discussion that we would need to have regarding this to schedule it, or?
Nope, it's already scheduled. The hearing for, yep, it's already scheduled.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving into the regular meeting business. Or were there any other amendments to the agenda? I didn't get a chance to talk to Pat about this beforehand.
I have none.
Yes, no? Okay.
There are none that I know of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next up would be the audience of citizens. Is there anybody in the audience of citizens that would like to discuss something that is not currently on the agenda? Is there anybody in the audience of citizens that has something they would like to discuss that is not on this meeting agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. Pat, was there any correspondence, or Jess, was there any correspondence that needs to get read in?
I have nothing.
Okay. Old business matters on which a public hearing was held. I don't see anything here. Old business, other matters.
None.
None, okay. New business, schedule a public hearing. We have none on the docket to be scheduled right at the moment. Moves us to new business. Z20-041, 306 Center Rock Green, owner Oxford Town Center, applicant Margaret Vance, the Peach Blossom Boutique. Is Margaret here on the call? Don't see her on the attendee list.
I don't know that she was going to attend.
Okay. So is there, looking at the application, does anybody have any questions, or do we want to just table this until that she was supposed to be here?
This is John Kerwin. I really don't see the need that we even have this person come in.
Right, that's, I'm looking to see, I don't see that much here.
This has been, it's a retail establishment. There's nothing on the application that makes it look any different or that would require any attention than us to come in and say, hey, what are you going to sell? Rather than waste these people's times, I'm sure a lot of the private business owners on the board would feel the same way, that they would resent having to come down for a simple application like this. I think we could just grant it, do it pretty much, allow the zoning administrator to grant these, and unless there's something different or something that's outside of the ordinary. Someone comes in with a retail establishment in a retail zone, I don't think they need to appear before us.
I tend to, in this particular
I agree.
case, tend to agree with John.
Yes.
Back
Exactly.
Yeah, in an outlier, I think that the zoning administrator can have enough discretion to say you need to go before the board, but I'm going to be selling dresses in a dress store.
Right.
We don't need to, you know.
Fair enough. And then again, first, having seen this tonight, the only thing I would ask is make sure the sign is in conformance with our regs.
Which apparently it is from the information here. I mean, I'd love to see a color rendition, but if this is the actual sign, that's fine.
Any other comments from the commission, or are we prepared to move forward with it?
No, I'm set.
I'm good.
So Pat, do you want to make a motion for this, or?
Sure.
Let's see.
I
Sorry, put on the spot.
move to approve application Z-20-041 with the following conditions. 1, the applicant and their signs must comply with all representations made at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and/or public hearing regarding this application. 2, compliant with the statement of use dated 2/25/2020. 3, the applicant shall obtain and comply with all necessary permits and/or approvals and follow the Town of Oxford approved permit procedure. 4, compliance with the Oxford zoning regulations as of this date. 5, the applicant shall be responsible for rendering payment for any outside experts the commission assigns to review the application. And the reason for the approval is that it meets the Oxford zoning regulations in effect as of this date.
Do we have a second?
Second. Pizza breast.
Second by Pete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just have a question. John, Vice Chairman Kerwin mentioned before this that there wasn't a need to have a person here for this application, but I want to make sure for the record that I heard this properly. That's all. Something about the zoning administrator signing off on these things without bringing them to the commission.
In my mind, I think that's definitely a topic to talk about. I don't think that exact moment in time was a time where we were making a unilateral decision across the board.
Okay.
But I think that's something, and I'm not sure why we do it tonight, just with the volume of the agenda, but that's something that we can certainly discuss as a commission, as an other business at a future meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. This is John Kerwin. I was just saying that as an opinion. Obviously, I don't have the ability to set any kind of precedent or regulation.
No, it's a good idea, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think that's something we can definitely talk about to streamline things and make it more efficient for everybody, because we want to make it work for everyone.
All right. I just wanted to make sure we weren't changing anything tonight that I had to make sure.
Nothing
for the next
changed.
meeting.
Nope, nothing changed, but
Thank you.
thanks for asking. And move on to zoning enforcement. Steve, can you give us an update on what we have here? Or any update? Steve, I'm not sure if you're here or if you're on mute. Steve? You still on?
Are you there? Hello?
There you are. Okay, great. How you doing, Steve?
Yep.
All right, I got someone to mute. So 317 Ridge Street has probably 50 or 60 vehicles registered in town. I have a whole entire list. The problem is they're on the wrong lot. That's a separate lot, so they're not supposed to be there. Matt gave me an email, which I forwarded to you guys. Maybe it was just to Jeff last month. I'll get a copy of it for you tomorrow. He's slowly moving them off the property. So, I don't know what you want to do. He's trying to get them off the property. I'll copy you tomorrow on the letters I got from Matt Salunas. We can talk about it next month. If that's okay.
I mean, I'm glad he's making progress, but was there a deadline date where we said these vehicles had to be moved?
I think I gave him like 30 days or so, but the past practice is if someone's working with me or with us I kind of extend their time because he's got a lot of stuff to get rid of. On certain cases like that, I try and be a little more flexible.
Okay.
It's not an emergency. Nothing's going to happen. He's getting them off the property.
Chairman, if I can just inquire through you to the zoning enforcement officer, do you have an estimate as to the amount of time, if he's working with you? Because I
He
know,
told me,
I know Goldstone was working with you, and he has 12 roads. So this would,
Yeah,
that's
I've
been
got
2
that
years.
too.
So this, 15 years?
I don't know how well he just cleared the second lot a while ago. He gave Mark permission to take off about 35,000 yards of material. Matt bought the property from Mark. He's been storing his stuff there, but he's been slowly getting rid of it. So I'll touch base tomorrow with him and have him give me a time frame and report back to you guys.
I would appreciate that. I'd like to know what is still there in relation to how much time is left, because, to John's point, and I certainly agree with it. I mean, there's a difference between, being flexible for somebody versus something that's been ongoing for an extended period. And
I
just
get
want to toe the line with this one.
So, yep, I got that. 27 Solano. I got a text from Alan Goldstone tonight, and he originally had 16 cars. Now he's down to 11, and 7 of those are now registered. He just bought a store in Waterbury called Waterbury Auto Parts, and they're all going to be going up there within the next 3 weeks to a month, is what he told me. I've given Kevin Condon the fine already. I haven't talked to Kevin about it yet, so I don't know what he's doing with it. But I will touch base with him tomorrow. And yes, Commissioner Kerwin, the vice chair, I know it's been a long time, so this one will stay on
it's not
top.
commissioner. It's vice chair, Steve. I don't know if you missed that.
No, I got it. I'm sorry. I got that.
Apparently it's on the website too.
Oh, I got it.
No, I got it. I got it. Mr. Vice Chair, also Berry Road. I just got a video from him.
Well,
He's
hold on a
cleaned up a
second
lot of-
there. Hold on.
Hold on.
Hello?
With respect to Mr. Goldstone, so he's storing how many cars still on his
He
property?
originally had 16. Now he's down to 11, and 7 of those are now registered in Oxford. So if they're registered in Oxford, I can't do nothing about that. And he just bought a.
Let's look at that. It's a residential zone, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So where in the regs, I'm not seeing it the same way. Where in the regs does it allow you to store 17 business cars on your residential property?
If they're registered in Oxford, there's nothing I can.
They're not. I mean, so is the other guy's trucks, the 80 trucks. They're registered, but that's a business. This is a residential
So he
zone.
moved it.
Can you
he moved
store
his-
trucks in a residential zone on your property?
If
for a
those
business?
trucks are let me finish. If those trucks are registered to the town of Oxford, he's paying taxes on them, he could have 50 of them. If they're not registered or not road worthy, he cannot. That's in our regulations. So what I'm telling you is
I can turn my
he just
property
bought a
into a
building
parking
in-
lot for a business.
he just bought a building in Waterbury, and he's moving his business. He just closed on it last week.
No,
It's called
I heard
Waterbury
you, Steve.
Auto Park.
I heard you the first time. I was just
I know
curious.
it's breaking up. That's why I keep repeating myself.
Yeah, I don't see it the same way. If he had a cottage business, he'd be allowed 2 trucks. So a residential use does not allow you to store business property like cars, have basically a parking lot for your business on a residential property. So I don't think the fact
I agree. I agree with you. But if they're registered in the town of Oxford under his name and that address, which is what he's telling me, I have not checked that yet, so don't quote me. There is nothing I can do. And yes, you could park 50 cars at your house if they're registered to your name and your address.
Well, we know that they're not personal use vehicles, which is permitted in a residential zone. We know that the businesses pertaining to his business or vehicles pertaining to his business. So I don't think that's permitted in a residential zone, but maybe you could take a look at the regs.
I think the catch-22 is I can try and get a copy of his registration. And if they're in his name and that house and not under Waterbury Auto Parts, then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I've already given Kevin a $9,000 fine on this, and he spoke last week and he couldn't make it tonight. So whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do. But it says in our regulations, you can store them there if they're road worthy. You're allowed to have one unregistered car. That's it.
Yep.
It's got to be registered
No,
in the town of Oxford.
Where does it say that you can have business vehicles in a residential zone?
What I'm saying is, as I
All right.
said before, that they're not registered to his business there. They're registered in the town of Oxford under his name at that address. It no longer says Napa. That's the problem. So he's supposed to get me copies of the registration and the insurance on that. We asked him for that last month. He has not provided that. So he's going to take those vehicles he has now and bring those to his new
But he's
shop
gonna-
he just bought.
We bought a place in Waterbury.
If I could interject,
What's that?
Steve, I think
What's
what we
that,
need to do, Steve, I think what we need to do here is keep the pressure hard and fast on this moving forward. Confirm the regs in terms of the question that Mr. Kerwin has, and let's just keep this firmly on that. We've gotten the line before that, oh, well, we're in the process of doing this and we're going to move things in 3 weeks or a month or something like that, and it's becoming repetitious. So lean hard on it. That's nice.
Well,
Do it.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure, we've got the fine out there. I'll discuss it with Kevin tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Brett.
I would say, if, and I agree with you, moving it forward, and John as well, it's got to continue to just keep progressing. But if we can get a firm and definitive date by which all those vehicles will be off the property up to the Waterbury location, if that's it, and if he says it's going to be, I'm just making this up, June 1st, then that's it. June 1st, so be it. If he doesn't hit June 1st, then let it fly.
And I hear you loud and clear. The only concern being that we've done that a couple of other times already, and I'm just not sure how many times we want to go back.
I understand.
Yeah, that's all. So that may be something that we can consider. Definitely consider. Between ourselves, but I think from the external perspective, we need to keep the pressure on to meet the original deadlines that we had put out.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you guys want me to do. I'm like I said, I'm just the messenger boy. So let me know. But I'll try and get his stuff from him this week, and we'll go from there.
I wouldn't call you the messenger boy. I'd call you the zoning enforcement officer, and then we're letting you know that this week this needs to.
Just breaking the ice. It's not a big deal to me.
What do you have on Perry Road and Bowers Hill Road?
So I just received a video from the gentleman out there, and I would say 80% of the stuff is gone. He got rid of a bulldozer, the Ackerman. I'm going to try and forward you guys the video tomorrow, and you let me know. I haven't been by there in about a week, but some stuff has changed. I know a couple commissioners have driven by there and saw some stuff. I don't know if they're satisfied or what they saw. I think Vice Chairman Kerwin went out there, and I think also Secretary Cocharola went out there, I think. Do you recall that, John?
Yeah, I didn't go out there specifically. I drive by there.
Okay.
Almost
Well,
every day.
I got a video. I thought it looked pretty good.
I'd like to see it if you could share that.
Yep, no worries.
Very good. And East Street, I'm not familiar with what's happening with East Street.
So it's been an ongoing thing, but he had an application to take out like 350 yards of material. He took out more. He expanded his yard into the wetlands. He was supposed to cut back 300 feet of his property. He owns 6 acres. He cut about 5. So he's before wetlands now for a cease and restore. I sent him issued order just to come in and register his cottage business there. So he's got some heavy equipment that's in and out, but it's all tucked behind a fence, and the property's pretty neat. So I've got one neighbor calling me like 16 times a day on this guy. It's obviously they're fighting with each other. So, but I have that under control. Once he gets his wetlands approval, I'll bring him in for the cottage business. And I told him too, he's got to get the big Ackerman. It's over 16,000 pounds and there's no place to house it.
Okay. If we could for this this section, if we can get the actual addresses on here, so if anybody else wants to take a ride by, they know exactly where they're going with it instead of.
I added that Jess asked me today. I added it.
And I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Any other comments for Steve from the commission?
Yeah, Steve, I had a question. Are there any permits for Jackson Cove Road?
Any permits for Jackson Cove? What, John?
Are there any excavating permits for Jackson Cove Road? You know, the road that goes down towards Jackson Cove? If you know off the top of your head, because
I do. The person digging out there, Wetlands called him today, and that guy told Mike Hurd that Andy Furlow said he can basically dig what he wants. And I want to say Mike Hurd went down there and shut him down.
Yeah.
I saw a machine down there.
Yep. All right. Good. I'm glad that happened because I was actually hiking and he was pushing dirt into the into the brook.
Yeah, he's I found that out today. I've dealt with that gentleman before on Little Punk Up.
Enough said. That's good. Somebody's on it. Thank
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's it. That's all I have, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve. Keith, we'll move on to the municipal planner section regarding comments about the amendments and also about the executive order.
Sure. I want to thank you for having me at the meeting. Talking about the amendments to the zoning regulations. Pat, do you have anything that you want to bring to the table at this point?
I'm working on it. I've got 2 pages of notes. And I'm about halfway through the regulations at this point. Most of it's minor stuff. Once I get through the regs, I'll send it all to you, and then you can put it together professionally and give it to the commission.
I think that's what we'll do, and then we'll figure out whether we want to present portions of the regulations as amendments. We want to do it all. We want to do workshops, and we can find our way at that point. But we're pretty close.
I would pretty close that we take it a section at a time as like little workshops. And of course, some of the smaller sections or obvious sections, we could do more than one, but basically break it up because, if you look at its entirety, it's like what, 160 pages plus or minus.
Yeah.
And,
quite a bit.
And that's a big thing to chew on. And let's face it, not all of the commissioners are retired and locked in the house where they can sit there and play with it all day.
Exactly. So I would say to the commission that Pat and I will, or myself, but Pat and I will present probably in the next, maybe the second June meeting, a pathway that we can start reviewing portions and approving portions in a very legitimate and concise manner. So we're making a lot of progress.
I like the idea of breaking it down into manageable size pieces and giving everybody a chance to digest it and giving it the attention that it deserves. So I think that's a good idea, and I think everybody else that'll work well for everybody.
And I think also the other thing is that this kind of forum really doesn't add to the give and take that we'll need in order to do a good job at this. We're going to have to be working in more of a workshop kind of situation that allows us to really work together and get a good document out of this.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just amplify on that, I agree. And I know other towns that have done this, that have done amendments to their zoning, they've obviously, this is the first pandemic that we've all experienced, but they've done it in a fashion where there's a lot more opportunity for the public to get involved. And
exactly.
I think, so, like Bridgeport has the website that, I don't know if you're familiar with Bridgeport's zoning amendments. I think it's good that we're working toward it, but I like the idea of waiting until we're able to sit down face to face and maybe have some workshops and bring the public in for some public comment and, get a few articles out there that, they're not our regulations, they're the town's regulations. So I'd really like to see that the public gets their ability and their input heard by us. So
And
that's my first comment.
I would agree with that. And I would agree with that. I think there's a place for getting, encouraging the public support and getting their involvement with that. The transparency aspect of it, I think, is important. But at the same time, too, we also have the controls to make sure we keep it moving forward also. So I think that all makes complete sense with what you're saying.
Good. The second issue, 7MM. Every community, 169 Connecticut communities were given an opportunity per the order to suspend pretty much most of the zoning regulations related to outdoor dining, outdoor shopping, parking, setbacks, and site plan reviews. So thank you, Governor Lamont, for giving planning offices such a really an unfunded mandate or unspecified mandate. Within the last 10 days, I've worked with Jessica and Steve, and we've developed a set of guidelines, a set of some background information, and a very extensive temporary zoning permit that will be used during the COVID-19 crisis, at least up to October 30th, in enforcing and allowing for untraditional outdoor dining, untraditional outdoor parking, unconditional outdoor shopping, all within areas that were relegated to areas like for that were for cars. This also did not suspend any of the building permit nor the fire marshal activities or fire chief activities, nor the health department regulations. So they are going to be pulled in on a very unique process that will determine what types of alternative shopping and dining you will see in Oxford for the next 6 months. It's very interesting. It's a little scary, and no one knows how it's actually going to work out. There was today. There was another last night. There was another executive order that put the police in control of these areas where people are not adhering to social distancing and things like that. But I think our application is complete. It's been reviewed by a number of people, including people at the COG, people in other agencies. We actually worked with the cities of the town of Seymour and the city of Derby, as well as Ansonia, kind of sharing information in the last 6 days. We've all been to webinars, and this seems to be the type of application that towns are looking for, and we were right on in getting this out, as they say, on the streets soon. It does have a hold harmless agreement, and it allows for a great review from the fire marshal, health department, and the building official. Any questions that you have? It is unique.
Keith, Pat Coachella here. I
Yes,
did
Pat.
read through this today.
Yes.
And it looks pretty comprehensive. And
yes,
I think that if the rest of the commission agrees, I mean, we can move forward to utilize this and allow some of our restaurants to start making use of it.
Sure.
So that, they can get back to business.
Sure, we would like to have that. If the commission could give us your blessing, that would be fabulous.
And,
is there a process where we're going to proactively get this out to to restaurants and businesses
questions.
and things like that, as opposed to making them come looking for it? How do we proactively communicate this? I'm thinking about, if this is opening up tomorrow, we don't have any of these completed or not, and, the process for us going and having those conversations with them tomorrow.
Well, we have 10 days from the first application. I do believe that Steve has fielded calls and is actively pursuing those people who are possible applicants. Is that right, Steve?
Keith, you're breaking up a little bit about the outdoor.
Yes, you've received some inquiries about that.
Yes, I have. It must be my phone. It's cutting out. I have received inquiries about that. Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Brett.
So yeah, I read through it too, and I was actually on the call on Friday with this on it. So just, I guess a couple questions I had. It limited the outdoor seating capacity to 50% paperwork here. And then second, the 10 days is essentially upon the time that we receive the application, correct? So at this point, there are no applications that we've received. And if we don't respond within those 10 days, it's automatically approved. I'm assuming Steve will be following up judiciously on this so that, things just don't get automatically approved. And second, what about the 50% outdoor capacity?
Well, yes, that is part of the regulations. 50% of the interior capacity will be allowed on the exterior of the building. That is something that the building official as well as the fire marshals understand as well.
Okay, I just didn't see that called out on here at all, as far as like stating
you'll
it,
see that
that's-
there's a little section under the application. I think it's number, let me see if I can find it. It's number 14, is that right? Yeah, that talks about
okay. Yeah.
the approved occupancy and the proposed, so they have to check that off.
Okay, and then as far as the 10-day process, that's on the time of the application, the signed dated application, correct?
Yes, it's the 10 days from the date that the application is received.
And if we don't make a decision, not we, but the zoning enforcement officer doesn't make a decision within those 10 days, it's approved?
Well, that's a little different because the zoning officer is going to have to wait for the fire marshal, the health department, and the building official to sign off on it as well. So I think if they don't sign off of it, then the zoning permit is not automatically approved, because this does not suspend health and safety measures such as the ones for those three agencies. It simply says that at non-traditional areas can be used for shopping, outside activities, shopping and dining. So if the permit is not signed off by those three other individuals, I don't think the permit can be approved. That's something that's I don't think has been actually proven out.
If I can just pipe in, this is John Kerwin. The actual order itself says that the local enforcement official that would apply to all the people that have jurisdiction shall review and approve with conditions, and it goes out within the 10 days. So I think
Maybe you're right.
one of them fails, it's like a chain. If we lose one of those, it's automatically approved within the 10 days. I think
You're probably correct.
The intent of the special order was to get these businesses back up and running. So
exactly.
I think obviously we have to let everyone else know, all the other agencies in Oxford, that it's mandatory. They shall review the application. So
you bet.
Just for the
Jessica's in
record,
in charge of that.
Coach Rowe, who is responsible for telling, Scott and the sanitarian, et cetera, that they have got to do this?
The governor. They have to read the order. It says they shall.
Do they,
Yeah.
Does he have them on speed dial? That's my point.
No.
Hopefully Kevin Condon does, or Mr. Temple.
They have to be made aware by somebody that this is important.
Yeah. Well, that's about both
Yes.
my pay grade. So.
And we some difficulty in the past with getting other departments to give us written communication when we've needed it.
Yeah. Well, I think the best thing we can do, and that is a problem, is we just do our due diligence, and if they drop the ball, it's on them.
What is going to be our internal process to actually document that we've notified Scott or any of the other required officials that need to sign off on this, that they have a valid application in front of them? So I think we need to ensure that, it's not just a phone call. That once we receive this application, it's scanned into the computer and it's emailed to those specific officials so that we've got a date and a timestamp on them.
Mr. Chairman.
So what's our internal process going to be?
Go ahead, Jess.
We did have a meeting on Monday. Was it Monday?
Monday.
Yes, yesterday. Regarding this. Keith was present virtually. I was there. I think Steve was there. Scott was there. The building official was not there. And Sergeant Borowski was there. Basically, and correct me, Steve or Keith, if I'm wrong, this goes to health department first. Okay? Health department has their own application that they have to fill out for that. Then we're actually the last on the list, from what I understood. So, and everybody has been informed. They all know about it. And Keith, the thing I sent you today, it has been a little bit tricky with the sign-offs, with the sign-off sheet that the building official that we use for every other permit, like sheds and decks and pools, he wants to use that sign-off sheet to do this. And my suggestion, and I think other people agreed that that would be confusing to say you have to go to the assessor and the tax collector and wetlands, but, and cross them out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we did have a sheet that just had health department, fire marshal, building, and zoning. But I haven't gotten any feedback from the building official or the fire marshal on that yet. So they do know, they are aware, and there's nothing we can do to make them do it any faster.
Yeah. I'd like to add at this point too, that I would like to see it separate because these permits sunset. They're not
permanent. That was a point that was made.
And so it shouldn't be the same paperwork. It should be its own set of paperwork. Because
agreed.
We want everybody to be aware, the applicants, so to speak, that these will sunset.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, it says something about as soon as the restriction on indoor dining is lifted, that automatically sunsets these, or October 31st, whichever comes first, or something of that sort.
Exactly.
Okay. Am I correct, Keith?
Yes. And to this all, this is an experiment. This is, we're going to have to work a little harder. We're going to have to be in touch with our colleagues a little more. And we're going to have to get on each other if we don't hear from them. We just can't wait. And the second thing is that yes, we did meet yesterday, and I think everybody's on board to try to make this work. It's just that we haven't really figured out about how exactly it's going to work. But I think it is. Once the applications, once people are seeing that this thing can work, they're seeing it maybe in other towns that people are actually eating on the street and creating these spaces, I think that they're going to be made aware and go for it as well. Some are just going to be easy. Some are just going to be able to just put a few picnic tables right in the front yard, sign the hold harmless agreement, and go on. Others are going to have to put up barriers. You're going to have to put up either Jersey barriers or all kinds of fencing. It's going to be a tough thing for a lot of restaurants. It's going to be up to Steve to tell them this will not work here, and it will be up to Steve to tell them it will work other places. So it's quite intricate.
Well,
it's a little subjective.
In some way, do we have a step-by-step process guide that we could show somewhere on our planning and zoning site, or something that is repeat?
Well, I think we want to have the application, the background.
But you're saying I think.
I believe that we want to have this whole package on the website, which encourages the applicant to call the building official and the health department right away. It has them encourage them to talk with the fire marshal, and it gives them all the processes that they have to go to overcome this. It also says to come and talk to either Jess or Steve at the start and get the process going. Even if they go to health department first, they should come to our office and figure out what they have and what they don't. And the people in the staff will understand a lot of these places they've been to. They understand what the layout is. They understand what the parking is, and might be able to give them some guidance right from the start without even having them go there.
And Keith, am I correct in understanding that we just don't have the luxury of being able to spend a lot of time? This has to get going. I mean, the 10 days, technically, if someone comes in and says they want to apply, the 10 days starts running. I mean, that order is in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some cities like, excuse me?
I think that's the important takeaway. We don't have the luxury of being able to, go through a lot of procedures and do a lot of documentation. We have to get going. And unfortunately, that's the mandate.
Right. It's going to be, I would say it's similar to like a MASH unit. We're going to stitch them up and away they go.
All right, Hawkeye.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. Document. I think we have to have our paperwork documented so that we've got everything on file and that all the processes were followed correctly, and that includes signed applications.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Hey, Keith, it's Dave.
See what happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Keith, I have one quick question for you, and I'm not sure we even have an answer for it tonight. It was just more of my own curiosity.
Sure. Okay.
In the actual form itself, with the whole harmless indemnification, other parts of the form we require a signature from the applicant business owner as well as the property owner, but we don't require a property owner's signature for the hold harmless. And I didn't know if that was intentional or not.
I think it is intentional. I don't know the legal reasons why. It's because this is a hold harmless agreement for those who are going to spread their business on the public right of way. So it's not necessarily the owner of the property who's doing the work. It's the business owner is expanding into either a public sidewalk or a public right of way. And that agreement is between the business owner and the town of Oxford to hold the town harmless.
And I just wanted to ask the question, so thanks.
Sure, no problem. That was good.
Does anybody else have any comments regarding? I don't want to rush through it, but I know we also have some other things going on too. Is there any other comments from the commission right now regarding this for Keith?
We're not approving anything, right? It's just a matter of this.
No, it's a matter of what we're moving
forward with. Okay.
Yeah, the governor approved it.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of just making sure we understand
paperwork.
He suspended your approval. Sorry. We've been waiting for this for a long time, us the planners.
Tutorial to me.
There you go. Keith, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll see you in the next couple of weeks. See you, Pat.
Bye, Keith.
Bye-bye. Bye, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve. Bye, commissioners. See you.
Bye, bye, Keith. Thank you.
Got a nice
Moving on to the minutes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the minutes from Jeff's from May 5th. Did everybody get a chance to read through or have any questions regarding them?
Stated planning as presented. I move to accept the minutes dated May 20 as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Minutes are done. Invoices. We don't have any invoices. Other business, the bond release request. Have we heard anything back from Town Councilor Jim Galligan?
We are waiting on Jim. I emailed her yesterday and she said Jim is working on it.
Okay.
So I will try again before the next meeting for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. The next one, the organization departments committee list for reviewer additions. Is that something?
Oh, I forgot. I forgot to send that to you guys. I forgot to send you the list.
Okay.
It was pretty too.
That's
made it very
for the sign-
nice.
That's for the sign letters, right?
Yeah, that's for the letters.
Yeah.
So I'll email that out to you tomorrow. And if anyone has, I mean, obviously we could bring it to the next meeting. I think I got like 60 something from various places, but I think some of them, you know, are no longer there's some of them are disbanded and things like that. So I'll send that out and it's in a Excel type sheet so you guys can add or you know delete or whatever if you know anything. Sorry about that.
So everybody can look at that over the next week or so, get it back to Jess, and that way we'll have a final list, hopefully, that we can just turn around and say we're good with come June 2nd. And is there any other business that the commission needs to bring up for discussion at this time? No? Okay, hearing that, the last topic on our agenda is moving to executive session, and I'm not sure how we want to do this. This is kind of unique in a virtual setting.
Mr. Chairman, Peter Olson asked me to text him when we were ready for him. So I'm going to text him that we're ready. You want to start there?
Well, how do we do this to make sure only the proper people are involved?
Well, I have a list and I'll just tell you. Steve and I are here. Let's see. There's only one person. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Steve and I are 11. No, and me is 11. There's one person here that is not on the commission. So we can ask that person to leave so that we can go into executive session. And once I see that person leave, we can invite Peter Olson in. Unless somebody else, I know some other people had other ideas. But right now I see 11 people here.
Is it the Busky Built Lifestyle?
Yes, it is.
That's one. For the Busky Built Lifestyle who's joined the call, could you please disengage the call right now so we can move this meeting into executive session? You're on mute. Thank you very much. They can't hear me now. They already left. But
Okay.
Thank you.
So 1, 2. So there should be the commission members, myself and Steve. That makes 10. And now I can text Peter Olson and tell him we are ready.
I'm just looking at this. Should be 1, Fred's 2, who's 3, Jesse's 4, 5.
You just need to keep an eye on it.
7, Josh is 8. Yeah, and then Steve and yourself. Yeah, so we're good. This is just the commission that's online right now.
All right, I just texted Peter Olson. He has the information to join the meeting. So let's see if he joins. And then if you guys have Steve and I leave, I know you all in the packet that I emailed you or that you have. I need the motions into and out of executive session and the times. And then I'll also need the information for the adjournment. And someone is going to need to watch the people on the side and make sure that nobody joins the meeting after you go into executive session.
Okay.
I'll take responsibility
make
for
sense?
looking at the people. Can we have a volunteer that wants to take care of the notes?
We don't take notes executive session.
I'm sorry, the motion.
I mean,
the
the
sheet that was
motion.
included in the packet.
All right, Peter Olson's joining now.
All right, I'll take care of that as well.
There he is.
My only concern,
Jessica,
Jessica,
are you stopping recording? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Jessica, my
Sorry.
only concern is that I want to make sure, since you were the organizer for this meeting, if you disconnect it, we don't lose the meeting.
I don't know.
Is there any reason we can't invite Jessica into this executive session?
Think hard, Peter.
Does anybody
Olson.
have any?
If you're risking disconnecting her, there's no reason she can't join. How are you, everybody?
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Okay. Is that all right? And Jessica, if you could stay on, that would be great to make sure that we maintain the continuity of the meeting. That would be good. Thank you.
All right. Sorry.
Okay. Do we need to turn the recording off?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So if you guys are ready, I'm leaving the recording on while you make your motion and state the time.
Okay. Okay. This is Dave Soder, Chairman. I need a motion to be able to enter into executive session. Does somebody would like to make a motion?
I move to move into executive session at 10:09 p.m. on 5/19/2020. I would also invite Attorney Peter Olson and Administrator Jessica Pennell into this meeting.
Okay.
Do we have
All
a
right.
second?
Yeah, this is Steve McCary. Do you want me to hang up? Hello?
That would be fine, Steve.
Hi, Pete. How are you? If you don't
I'm
need
good,
me,
Steve. I
I'm
think
good,
that's
thank
fine.
you.
All right, let's see if you could go ahead and hang up.
Hang up?
Yes, Steve, you can go ahead and hang up.
Okay, good night, all. Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Did somebody second that motion?
We did not get a second yet.
Okay.
I did. Second it.
Pete, okay. All
Aye.
those in favor?
Aye.